Monday, August 12th at 4:47, and I'm calling this meeting of the HR Committee to order. We have a quorum present in chamber. Number one is the approval of the July 8th, 2024 minutes. They're in your packet. Any questions, concerns? Otherwise, I'll take a motion to accept. Motion from Killian, second by Martins. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Human Resources Report for July of 2024. It's in your packet. Any questions for HR Director? Seeing none, we'll place that on file. Discussion and possible action regarding the Discretionary Performance Incentive DPI program.
I wanted to bring this to the committee because I know last year, under the former mayor, the former police chief, and the finance director and I had a meeting. And the meeting was about the budget for the DPIs. And there is no budget for it. My understanding was in 2022, when I came, they were using like unused funds from road salt or something like that. And they were also using vacancy savings. Well, the finance director informed us that they no longer use vacancy savings because she calculates that for something else. And that's not really fair anyway, because if you have a department of 100, you're going to have more vacancies than someone that has a department of 3. So that's not really fair in the first place. But I think the issue that I wanted just to discuss, and it doesn't matter to me anyway, but I just want direction on whether to budget this. But I just want the committee to know what this DPI, what this actually is. Basically, the ground rules is that you have to have an exceeds on your performance reviews. Well, probably 95% of the people in the city have exceeds. Now, that's a statistical anomaly. That just doesn't happen. So when I first got here, I asked a supervisor once, I noticed, why does everyone get exceeds here? They said, well, I don't want to be the reason that they don't get a DPI. And that was the reason. So our performance review system is thrown out of the window. It makes no sense. So that's part one. But then I want to put the math to this on how this really works. If a person gets a DPI, and really HR, even though it says the HR director approves it, you really have to rubber stamp it, because there's no way you can go, well, you have to take the director's word for it. So they get 4.5%, which is basically 3 steps in our compensation system, because our steps are 1.5%. So that's 4.5%. And if we get a 3% COLA, they get the 3% COLA. So now we're up to 7.5% raise. Okay? They still get their annual 1.5 step. So we're at 9% raise. Okay? And in the certain department, now that they've got CERT pay and all these kinds of other things, that's another 5 to 8%. So I think you can see how this can really get out of control when it comes to equity within the department, and then just the sustainability. Again, and I brought this in 2022 when I came here. These were all the requests that were handed to me in just 2022, and 95% are from one department. So that's an issue. And I got an email from I constantly get emails on people, why are we not doing DPIs? Why are we not doing DPIs? It's in the employee handbook. And my answer has been in the past, hey, we don't have it in our budget. But I think this is just something that we need to put it out there. If the committee and if council wants me to put it in the budget, that's something we need to do, or we need to deal, with the program on its merits. And that's why I wanted to bring it to the committee to get this conversation started.
With these requests,
You need to put on your
sorry, I was on vacation last week, so I forgot how to obviously operate. For these requests, do salaried people get those as well as hourly?
It is possible. I've not seen, because I haven't seen it, none's come through, because Whenever I've been asked, I've always said we don't have a budget for it, but I think they're eligible also.
Okay, because that makes no sense to me if a salary person, because it's supposed to be, X number of dollars is your salary, and it's almost expected that a salaried person is going to go over their 40 hours, and hence the reason that they're salaried.
Well, it really has nothing to do, it has nothing to do with overtime. This is their base salary.
Right, right. But I mean, typically when somebody gets $100,000 a year, it's not like they're getting a commission.
Right.
It's not, because from what I read, it looks like it's people who've had to work additional hours that have the performance review of, the exceeds and so on and so forth. So if they're salaried, what would dictate that they would get the DPI?
Okay, I'm just going to be honest with you because,
Okay.
sometimes I'm honest
Absolutely.
to a fault, and this is a public meeting. But anyway, there have just been issues to where someone had a problem with their pay, and someone just says, give them a DPI. That's easier than going through the process, and that's what's happened.
And I guess my other question is, you said that a large percentage of them are from one department. Has there been conversations with that department saying, hey, not everybody can be exceeds, and your department is the majority of them, so I guess I'm just wondering if there's been a conversation with the person that is overseeing that department and shoveling these DPIs through.
Well, I've had the conversations, but it's obvious that within that department, the powers that be don't like our compensation system, and this is what they use to settle the score. Again, I'm just being honest.
Yeah, that's.
But that's
and what
the
we want.
case.
Okay. Okay. How do we fix that?
That's why I'm here.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
It sounds like the way the program is set up, it's not viable for the city. It says there aren't any specific ground rules for that evaluation. So my question is this: if there were very specific ground rules and guidelines that a director had to fill out, and then they had to document all of the information that they're providing, would that make it a more viable program? Because it feels like they can just say, give them a DPI, but if they have to go through specific guidelines and procedures and document what that employee has done to deserve a DPI, would that make it viable?
I think that would make it better, but I think in the end, and I hate to say it this way because it just if anyone other than HR is handling compensation, you're going to have a problem because it's equity. Again, just like I said, you could have someone that comes in with 2 or 3 years of experience. They get a DPI. Is that? Okay. And they get one DPI, and they're now up to the experience level of a 6 or 7 year employee. Okay, so what do you tell that person when it comes to equity? That's my issue, is the equity. I'm all about performance incentives. I don't think they should be tied to your base pay because I think that just causes, again, we used to call it compounding benefits. Because again, instead of, this one person gets a 3% COLA and their 1.5% step, then you're going to have this other guy right beside him that's going to get 10 to 15% raise, and that's just not fair.
So as our Director of Human Resources, it sounds like you feel the program should not go into the budget and it should not be a healthy program for the city. And as our Human Resource Director, if that's how you feel, that is what I would respect.
I just want direction because again, it's become a thing of conflict because, and the people are right because they'll come to me and they'll complain because they're not being approved, and they'll say, hey, it's in the employee handbook, so you should be doing it, and that's fine, but we don't have a budget for it, and no one's ever told me because I brought this up last year, and no one ever told me what budget that this money's going to pull from.
Well, certainly if a director is not even comfortable saying, I'm not going to give it because I don't want to be responsible for them not getting it, it doesn't sound like a good program to me. And I guess my feeling would be that it should not be there and that human resources should maybe be the area where those types of initiatives come through rather than the way it's set up now.
And again, I just wanted to get the conversation started because I just think it needs to be dealt with. We can't keep kicking that can down the road because again, I get emails from a certain department all the time. Hey, why are we not getting these? Why are we not doing this? Why are we not, and it's just getting to the point. I just wanted to get the conversation started because, am I getting some feedback? Because again, I get emails from certain, I think part of my job is sometimes I have to, did I go off? I think you cut the mic off. It's just getting to the point. Am I getting some feedback? Okay, came back. I think, part of being in human resources, you can't have a thin skin because people are going to be mad at you all the time for whatever reason. And if it's a legitimate reason, I can deal with it. But, I don't like being the bad guy when I don't have to be. And I feel like there needs to be more direction that comes from council on either do we need to revamp it, do we need to look at it again, or do we need to take it out of the employee handbook? And I think that's where I am with it because I think some people have just gotten the thing that, well, he just doesn't want to do the DPIs. And that's not the case. It's just that it's like anyone else. It's just like writing a check and not having any money in the bank. You can do that, but you're probably not going to have freedom for a long time.
Go ahead.
I guess my question is, it sounds like it's very easy for some particular departments to send these through because, as you had said before, they don't want to be the reason that a person doesn't get their DPI. And I think maybe there needs to be a revamp of how to get a DPI so that it can't just be sent through willy-nilly, so to speak. That it should be something that doesn't just get rubber stamped through certain departments, that there has to be some very precise reasons why this would go to somebody. And perhaps we need to look at revamping the procedure itself, because I don't think the answer is just to throw more money at it. If people are, it sounds like there's departments that may be abusing this, or that there is department heads that are putting it through so employees don't get upset with him and or her. And I don't think that was probably the reason for this program in the first place. So maybe we need to do a better job of looking at the program and making more precise, I guess, a more precise reason why this should be the minority and not the majority, and what needs to happen for a person to be eligible for this, because it sounds like it doesn't take much at this point in time.
No, and go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
Well, I think the program itself, I think, is something that we want, because we want to, in essence, reward exceptional service. I think that when managers or supervisors see something of outstanding nature, I think the city should be able to acknowledge that as a great performance, whether we talk about the increases, with that, but the handbook speaks to tuition reimbursement, assignment, gift cards, nominal items designed to reward an employee, paid time off in half-day increments, one-time cash bonuses. So we should be building a budget, I would think, to cover those types of instances. I'm not sure about the base percentages and all that, but I think that there are other ways that we can rewarding our employees, because, you know, they do go above and beyond. And I think that I, for one, favor that. I think that we should acknowledge great performance, and I think that there should be a way, and I think basically building a budget for that and how that is accomplished, that I think is pretty much by the department director. But I think that we need some kind of a program, and if this is being I'm not sure, we don't, you know, your stack of, you know, I can't right now say if it is being abused. We have no sense of what those employees did to deserve this. But I think that we just can't throw it away. I think that we need to have a way of rewarding and acknowledging good performance, great performance, things that we've done, you know, employees that have done. I think we need to do that. And I think this is why this system was in place. Whether this has to be tinkered with, fine, but I am not one to just throw out this. I think we need to be, I for one would be wanting some type of a program where we acknowledge excellent performance on our employees. You know, we struggle with the budget, we struggle with employee compensation every year. This may be one way of acknowledging our employees who do good work. And I think there is a need for some kind of a budget to acknowledge gift cards, tuition reimbursement. I think we need to have that, and I think we do that. And I'm wondering if other things were other items used, gift cards, one-time cash bonuses, was anything else in the employee handbook used as acknowledgement, or was it just pretty much the base percentage increase?
The base percent increase is the only one that I've seen. Now, I will say that in finance, at the end of there was the one-time cash bonus, which was fine because they were under a lot of issues with Workday and then just their normal year-end stuff. But that was a one-time cash bonus. It was not tied to their base pay.
Right, and our policy and our handbook allows for that.
Yes. Yes.
So, I mean, there are other ways of acknowledging that.
But again, the lion's share is the 4.5 increase. And again, like I said, that's because there's just certain people that don't like our compensation system, and this is their way to get it even.
And we can't have that. I mean, I'm going to just say we can't have that because I have people in assessment that may not have a director that says, that it sees it equally. And that's why it would be better, I don't know, I'm spitballing, but it'd be better if one person was the arbiter of what is an exceed compared to seven. I mean, the director can certainly make his case or her case. But if you're having different directors decide what is an exceed and then another director is different, how would you like to be an employee in another area that does everything that they see somebody else doing, but they're not getting that 4.5% compared to other people? It's unfortunate because in the city business, we are 350 some strong, and we all are like little different businesses all along. You know, it's a different model. I get that, but people still should have employment here and feel that they're treated equitably with that kind of, of how raises are given and, and how expectations are decided, those type of things. And I think that's the important part. And I know that I get calls, and I have for the last 8 years, about, well, so-and-so, this department, they give this, I don't get that. And I have no answers to that. I push them to HR. But I think it's not that we're trying, I don't know. I'm not personally trying to say nobody deserves, maybe a special raise, but I don't know if everyone does. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I guess that's my point, is if we see one particular department putting through everybody as exceeds, that's questionable, because exceeds is supposed to be going above and beyond, doing something exemplary. And that's typically not the majority of a department. That's usually for somebody who is the elite, the ones that are really, really putting forth a lot of pressure. I am not against a budget, because I think there are certain individuals that deserve this. I think we have to keep tuition reimbursement, because education is critical. I am not against that at all. And we need to have a budget for those people who truly are exceeding in their position. But again, this needs to be, we need to tighten up something here, because you can't have one department director that is doing it the right way and say out of a department of 10, he's got 2 people who are really meeting those expectations of going above and beyond. And you have another person with a department of 10, and he's shoving 6 of them through as above and beyond. And that's typically not how that works, because it's just, again, you're talking about the cream of the crop, and I see that there is a possibility of abuse with the way that is done now. So I agree with Gary. I think that we have to have a budget for this, because there are people who really go above and beyond and do deserve some recognition for that. But I think we have to take a closer look at how this program is run, so that it can't be abused. Thank you.
And I think there's really nothing more demoralizing to an employee where they go through a performance review, they get exceeds expectations across the board, and then there's no reward for that. So I see the importance of the DPI in that sense, but also but to your point, James, to your point, we were running into the performance inflation, where everybody it sounds like they're automatically exceeding expectations, and then now there's a certain expectation that this incentive is given to them, and yeah, it's blowing the budget apart. To remove it would certainly, not help things on a morale standpoint, but it does need to be reshaped of some way, shape, or form. If everybody's going to automatically, if they exceed expectations, if they're automatically going to get DPI, then maybe we got to look at the percentage base. Instead of going 3 steps, you get 1 step for a DPI. If that would be more equitable, if maybe then other departments would feel, they would want to do that for their employees. Either that, or we're going to have to redo how performance evaluations are done, so there's more rigor to them, so that you don't automatically get to that point where you can easily exceed expectations and then be awarded that DPI.
I think too that we can look at beyond base building as well. I mean, other places, there are other, I'm sure the HR director could give us a number of different things that could be done. Could it be a one-time bonus? Could it be, I mean, there's certainly other type of things that we could do instead of base building percentages that can be, a reward. But I agree. I think that if we're out, if we're out of control, and this is, because I just want everybody to know, 4.5% base building means next year it's how much more, and this year it's how much more.
Yeah.
And it's the inequity goes on. Then it just broadens, and everyone knows what everybody makes.
And another byproduct of this too is you get through the compensation structure a lot faster. So then once you hit that step 20 or step 15, now you're redlined and you go nowhere. And then they complain because they're not getting a step every year. So it's like an onion. It just keeps building, in its form. It causes a lot of issues.
Thank you. As I said earlier, if we want to maintain a program for those who exceed, and is it possible with this one to have a lesser percentage and to have specific ground rules that the directors have to fill out and document, and then the final decision comes to you as the director saying, yes, I think, or is that going to make you the bad guy?
Well, it's not so much being the bad guy, but the problem is that I'm not down in the departments. I don't know what they're doing. I have to just take that's the way it is now. I just have to take their word for what they said that person's doing. But, doing your job and doing it well, that's what you're expected to do. That's not just that's what I say about perfect attendance. That's why, you should come to work every day, unless there's an issue that you can't. And getting paid for that, that's a benefit. That's not an entitlement.
Is there any way to have, instead of having it in the general budget, is there any way to have a certain amount in each department's budget where they could say, I'm going to reward the employees that really excel in this department, and know that there's a limited amount of money for that? It certainly would raise the standard of performance. I think that I don't know if there's anything like that.
I think the problem with that is I'll go back to that hot hall in the Constitution when they were building out, representation. Should it be by population or should it be equal? The Virginia and the New Jersey plans. So now we have a mesh of those to where you have Congress to where it's done by population, and then you have the Senate to where everyone has two. And that's my roundabout way of saying is that, again, if you have a department of 100, you're going to have a lot more money than a department of 3. And so that's going to have its own issues.
Okay, thank you.
But you can build a budget on the total compensation package of a certain department. So whatever that is, 1%. So that person would know, in this department, 1% of my total compensation is such and such, and that's what we have to deal with. And the handbook mentions that it also is from 0.25. I mean, the range can be from 0.25 to 4.50. So, I think there's different ways of, and maybe we have to start with the job with the job performance evaluation to begin with. But I think that there are ways for each department to have a certain amount of money, and how that money is budgeted and gotten to, how that amount of money is gotten to, I think can easily be determined. But I think that I think if we think this is a good thing, I think that there's ways of working about it. But maybe it's just 0.25%. But I just don't want to throw out the whole thing.
So if I'm at the end of the year and I've got $100,000 left in my budget, no one's really doing anything, you don't think they're just going to say, well, let me divide this out equally? And that's not what we're looking for either.
That's exactly right. But I would trust at this point in time, I would trust the director, but because the director is the one responsible for the budget at that time. So if they have, I don't know how to answer that, but how to answer that scenario, but I think we at least have to try some method if we feel that this is an appropriate way of acknowledging excellent performance. I think then we have to try to work around it.
Go ahead, did you want?
I just wanted to make a comment with Alder Martins. He had said, as a point of morale, getting rid of this program morale would take a hit. And I agree. But also, if I were in that department and I was truly excelling, and the person who sits in the cubicle over wasn't, and you know your coworkers, you know who you go to if you ask, need a question answered, you know who is really the star in the department. Now, if I was that star in that department and somebody who has been here only 2 years and has lots of questions yet, maybe isn't coming to work all the time like they should, and they're still getting that because that department head doesn't want to be the reason that they don't get a raise, that would be a morale buster for me too, because I would feel like, why should I be really going to town here when I really don't need to, and I'm still going to get that same increase? Again, it's supposed to be for those people who are really going above and beyond. And I think perhaps the department head that's kind of steamboating everybody through, it should be addressed with them, because that's not the reason that this program was set up. And if the answer is, I don't want to be the reason that everybody or these people don't get an increase, that is part of their job. That is a solid part of their job. It's doing evaluations, doing them fairly, and recognizing the elite. So perhaps that department head needs to be called out on that too.
You know, we're all a prisoner of our own experience. And all I can say is, in my experience in public and private, and talking to other municipalities, other HR directors, I've never heard of a program like this. Never. That deals with your base. Now, you know, a one-time $500,000, whatever you pay, that's fine. And even in the public sector, you really don't see a lot of that, because public sector normally don't give bonuses. But I've never in my life seen a situation where a department head, really without HR, without anyone else, no checks, no balances, can basically raise someone's pay 4.5%. And that's just a start, and then it compounds from there. And again, like I said the last time we were here, I'm an operator. I'll do, my job is to do what council and what the committee tells me to do, but just, I don't see how you sustain a program like that. That's my issue. How do you sustain 12 and 13% raises for some people? And then my buddy over here is getting 3. You know, I've made this argument before. It kind of sounds like deja vu, but I mean, that's kind of my issue is, how are you going to explain to people, you know, this just keeps compounding. And then, again, once they hit the end of that band and they're not progressing anymore, now they're upset because they're not getting their annual 1.5%.
Yeah, I'm trying to recall the history of the DPI program. For some reason, I'm thinking it's one of those. It was one of the things that was created in response to Act 10, but
I spoke to Michael Loy is the one that brought it forth, and when first of all, I asked him, why in the world did you do this? And he said, well, it's not the way that I intended it. You know,
Okay.
he says it's not, it's kind of taken a life of its own. It's not the way that I designed it. It's not the way that I want it. He said it's just kind of taken a life of its own. So I know that Michael Loy was the one that implemented it. That would have been, I think he was here, 2008, 2012, maybe something like that.
So it's probably, it was about that time period, 2010, 2011, when, yeah, all that hit the fan. But, yeah, and it also seems very incompatible with how our current salary step schedule is, because we've done in the 6 years I've sat on council, we've had significant, we've significantly changed that, the step plans. So I think, and I'm in total agreement with you. I think we need a better kind of performance program that is not dependent on, that doesn't create base building. I do see that as a problem. So I wonder if something that could be devised that was more on a bonus, a cash bonus kind of system. Departments could be budgeted a certain amount, certain percentage. I know the challenges where HR has 3 employees and, DPW's got 100, so there is an inherent challenge in that. But I think something like that would be easier to manage, because a department would have that pot of bonus money, and then they could figure out how their performance evaluations are gonna, move, how they would do their evaluations and divvy up that bonus pot. It's there'd be a finite dollar amount to it. If a department thinks everybody gets a bonus, then the overall amount is less, but it doesn't increase the base. So it still gives the employee growth in the system, and that should alleviate, the issues of redlining.
But, a lot of times the problem with incentive, there's a difference in an incentive and an entitlement. An incentive makes you want to work for something. An entitlement says, hey, I deserve it, give it to me. It's kind of like that song, Give It To Me, I'm Worth It. Sometimes I'd love to play that because most everyone comes in there, that's their theme, give it to me, I'm worth it. But, that's not, this is to incentivize someone to go beyond, not just, hey, I've been here 20 years and I deserve more money. That's kind of where, the way that I see it as in certain spots to where it's a go, I don't like HR's compensation system. I don't like what we're being paid. I can use this to somewhat settle. I mean, I know I sound like a broken record, but that's how I take it. And again, I just want to know how, when it comes to accountability and being stewards of the public's money, how do we square that with the citizens? People they're basically writing their own check and making their own raises. That's not a good look. And it's not the way to run a business. No, this isn't a business, but that's just not the way to do it.
Gary and
Well, we do have in the handbook, we do have the policy for other types of rewards, but I would think that with the incentive, that it is a demonstrated instance, not so much the work of over a year, but a demonstrated instance within a day or a week or a project or something that would call for some type of acknowledgement by the department. So it's just not, I've been here for 20 years, but we took on this project of demonstrating a new machine, and it's not in my job description, but I was called on to demonstrate this machine to the staff, and I was called on. I accepted. I did it, and a demonstrated, I would think a demonstrated action by the employee that would garner some type of acknowledgement, rather than a demonstrated great employee throughout the year. I think that's sort of what the program was meant to be. So the past instances of Workday, putting that whole project together was demonstrated a lot by a lot of employees, granted, but I think that there's other demonstrated instances with our employees of employees going beyond their job description to the benefit of the city of Wausau, and I would think that they would be the ones that would sort of be in line for some type of, I'm not saying 4.5, but I'm saying some type of acknowledgement of by the city of Wausau to this employee. And I think that generating some type of a budget so that we know what we're dealing with, the directors knows what he's dealing with. I think that this, whether we abandon that 4.5, I don't know about that right today, but I think that we still have to start with the ground rules of what's in the handbook and make that policy a better policy. And I think we can do that.
Okay, along those lines, I'm going to read you a paragraph, and I'm not going to mention the names, but this was a DPI that was approved in August of 2022. And part of the paragraph, over the past 18 to 24 months, this person has seen significant changes and just navigating, and it was kind of like a Lifetime Achievement Award. Over 18 to 24 months. That's why the person got the DPI again, and that's why I think it's a good idea, but like a lot of ideas are great, but it's the execution is where things get lost. And I think that's the problem, is that you've got ever how many directors you have, everyone has a different definition of what going above and beyond is. And that's where you have the problem when you're talking about someone's base salary.
But I think we have to move beyond the base salary part of that handbook, and I think we have to move beyond, I think there's some question with regard to that, but I think if we move beyond budgeting and the other instances of how the city can acknowledge that work, I think that's still in place. I'm not, the percentage of base salary, I'm starting, I have questions about that, but I don't want to throw out the whole policy with regard to that because of that one instance.
I guess I'm going to say, for me personally, that is step also. You get your step on a performance eval. Mm-hmm. That's part of it. I mean, I don't know, so because somebody did and they performed admirably according to their job description does not seem above and beyond to me. And that's why I think this needs to be, if going forward, if there is some DPI, no matter what the goal is, there's going to have to be very clear designation of what is considered performance and what is considered, an exceeding, because people do their jobs, that doesn't mean they're exceeding. And I think that's where this is kind of crossing for me and listening, in that, that's your performance, that's your step, is by your performance. You get that step every year of whatever it is. So we can't say just, that's another discretionary, unless there is an exceeding for something that is equal across the board. It may not be an equal job performance task, because we have DPW, we have HR, we have finance, we have, the customer service. It may not be a task, but it has to be what performance, what kind of ideals, what kind of data points need to be hit in order to say this is an exceeding. Unfortunately, performance reviews are a lot of, it's not as data-driven as I would like, I mean, there's going to be some of that, squishiness in there, but I think we can do better by having, there has to be, somewhere in HR land, there has to be some kind of tool or something of what would be considered an exceeding performance compared to, meeting expectations.
Well, one of the things that I did when I got here is I got with Civmic and I had them offer training on filling out performance reviews for this very reason. Because like I said, I've never seen 90 to 95% of people in an organization have exceeds on their performance reviews. So I can't remember how many people, but not a lot of the supervisors actually attended that. But that was something that we did for that very reason. It was to try to train, to try to give people tools, to make better, and that's the thing about, and that's not a Wausau thing, that's a global thing about performance appraisals. And that's why in the HR world, it's so tricky and so it's hard to tie pay with, it all sounds great, but the execution of tying pay and performance, because that's such a subjective, what I think is great performance to someone else may be, they're just here. So that's the problem that you're always going to have when you base someone's pay on their performance, because it's going to have an area, no matter how much training you do, it's going to have subjectivity to it. And if you have a really reasonable supervisor, it's going to work in your favor. And if you have a throwback to the 50s, it's probably not. And that's the problem that people have when it's tied that way.
Like you say, Becky, in HR land, and I don't know the laws and the rules, but is there a way for in the city handbook to say that the city, instead of basing everything on a monetary value based on their performance, is there a way for the city of Wausau to say, we will do this for those people who excel at their job performance? And there have to be strict guidelines, and maybe it can be a one-time bonus, or maybe it can be having them get a plaque in front of the city council, or maybe it could be a one-time something to acknowledge that they excel in their job instead of.
And that's where I land. I'm just like Alder Gilsterman and Alder Martins. I think it's a good program. I just think that, and I'm in favor of the one time. My issue and my hang up is just when it's used to subvert our compensation system. And that's what I've seen. That's the only issue that I have with it. I think that people should be rewarded. I think people should be incentivized. That's part of why we work here. But again, when it's used to circumvent or to get around certain things, that's when it becomes a problem.
I think the 4.5% is insane. Most businesses are not giving a 4.5%
Not even as
as an
COLA.
annual increase when you are excelling. So I think a minimum of 2.5 to 4.5 is a ridiculous amount, and it's on base pay. Plus, they're getting that 3% COLA. It is certainly out of control.
Mm-hmm.
It definitely needs to be revamped. I definitely think we need to keep an incentive program out there, and we need to budget for it. But I think that this program is excessive.
And one thing I want to just in the thing of fairness, I might need to, before, I know I mentioned the 1.5 step that you get on your anniversary. I'm not 100% sure they still get that, but I think they do. So that's something I'll have to clarify with my staff one. But still, at the very least, it'll be 4.5, and I know they get the COLA. So that would be 7.5%, which is still, I was talking, because I at this point now, we're trying to see what communities are doing with their COLAs. And I've talked to several communities. Several are doing 3. But the thing about it is, even when we do a 3% COLA, that's still 4.5 because you get the 1.5% on your anniversary date. We don't add that in the COLA, but that's still relevant. And a lot of communities don't even do that when they're not on a step system.
Maybe maybe what we need to do is we don't necessarily have to take action on this
No.
today, is come up with a couple of ideas or options that we can kind of mull around, possibly, just so that the performance isn't tied to base building. Maybe we could do something like a 1.5% bonus as discretionary performance incentive, or a set dollar amount, that can be budgeted. Those might be two options. I guess we'd have to see financially how that would kind of, flush out what would be the fiscal impact on those. But, if we can get away from get away from the steps in the base building, I'd be totally, I'm totally fine with this. I don't want to trash the program completely, but I think if we can come up with some kind of a bonus structure, and then just tie to it some rules that, it's not ticking exceeds expectation in every box, but it's got to be something that goes, like, really exceeds expectations, that brings, that kicks in this one-time bonus.
So, committee, would you like us to push this back without action, back to the HR director, have him work up some possibilities and bring it back?
Okay.
Okay, I think I see consensus. Perfect, thank you. Thank you for the discussion. Discussion and possible action to approve the senior collection system technician job description.
This was actually approved, I think, in September of last year, the addition of the 3 positions in the waterworks. The only difference was this is a new position, so with a new position, the job description has to be approved by HR. So even though the positions have already been approved, we need to approve the job description so that we can get that on to full council.
Thank you. Motion by Gisselman, second by Killian. Any comments? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That passes unanimously. I'm going to read this, and then I'm going to ask the mayor to come up. Discussion and possible action to ratify the July 8th, 2024 HR committee meeting, item number 3. Discussion and possible action to restructure the City of Wausau Animal Control Program in open meeting format due to inadvertent locked door at City Hall. And the mayor we're going to have him kind of explain this.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So apparently this is a thing that happens out there with automation, and we found a few examples in other cities where they've had inadvertent closed doors, whether that's due to changes of meetings, changes of locations, maybe extensions of the meeting, because these are programmed in and turn off when the meeting is either expected to be closed. So what some have done is come back and ratified these decisions if somebody was potentially locked out. So I think this is one of those things, talking with the chair, that we felt would be more transparent and open to acknowledge that we had this issue and bring it back, not necessarily for a 100% re-kick of the can, but to acknowledge that there was a potential open door violation, and we've rectified it by addressing the minutes and then addressing any potential questions that could have come up. So one of the things I guess that I'm more concerned with is learning some lessons here. How do we fix this? We have budgeted a plan for council chambers update with our AV monitoring and microphones and controls. And maybe we can, and I've talked briefly with the facilities director about integrating some sort of a door open, door closed indicator in that system, or maybe even giving a button up here for the chair or the clerk to be able to make sure that that door is open, potentially have a camera. Some municipalities have put a camera on the front door. We could put a buzzer on the front door to make sure if somebody is inadvertently locked out, or potentially you have a handicapped person who can't access the building, whatever that may be. We should have some method with the technology we have today to address that. So we will look at that moving forward, and hopefully this is a good faith effort to rectify this issue. Thank you.
Okay, so I've talked about this numerous of what they want to do. Alder Tierney was the one that was not able to get into the meeting after the meeting had started. Do you want to speak to this issue, or?
I was a little bit late for the meeting due to an unforeseen circumstance, and when I tried to get in, unfortunately, the doors were locked, and there was no way for me to jump in front of a window so somebody could see me. So I did send an email out to Chairperson McElhaney as well as Mayor and the council president, stating that I wasn't happy about the situation that had occurred, and that we really needed to be careful about this because it is a violation of Wisconsin open meeting law. So what had happened is the mayor had come back to me and said that the votes that were taken that night, they would open that up for me to vote on those situations. So that's basically the story.
Do you have any thoughts, since you weren't here, on this subject that you would like to voice at this time? And I'm going to remind everyone that this will be going to council. This isn't final action, so.
Right, and that's my understanding as well. So the animal control vote, I believe, was the only one that day that I had missed. And I've thought about this a lot because I've had some time to do that. And I have talked to a few members in the community about their take on this. And at this time, regarding that situation, I am going to go with the CSOs, and because I guess it's my understanding that we were supposed to have CSOs along with the animal control person during this whole process. So there should have been some training already started, which I don't think we had done with the CSOs when this program started. So I think we need to go back, look at the training and see how the program does in that situation. Looking back at this, it doesn't look like we've had a whole lot of dog bite situations or injury situations with this. So that's what my vote is at this time.
So we're in new territory here. Is anybody else want to speak? Otherwise, we are going to make another vote to ratify, what was done. Does anyone else have anything to speak to this? Otherwise, go ahead. Go ahead.
Becky, I just wanted to say thank you to you and to Mayor Denny for acknowledging that there was an open meetings violation, and I really appreciate the fact that you have brought this back to ratify it. I think that was a big step forward. Thank you.
Welcome. And as an aside, probably shouldn't be in the, I thought I saw somebody out there at the time, but their back was to me and I couldn't see. It's like, so I apologize, and we will figure this out. I don't remember it happening before, but we will. Is anybody else want to speak to this subject before we take a vote? Go
So
ahead.
question, the original motion then was to approve the, motion by Martins to approve the proposed restructure of the animal control program, and that was seconded by McElhaney. So that would be Is that the reconsider
Yes.
then motion that we would be looking at? I feel comfortable with the minutes. I think the
Okay.
minutes reflect my attitude, so I'm,
Okay, yeah, that would be the motion, because that was the motion that was put forward. And did it say who had the motion?
motion by Martins to approve the proposed restructure of the animal control program.
Okay,
And second by McElhaney.
okay.
I think, I don't know that a reconsider, I think the agenda is to ratify.
Yeah, I know.
Most,
It's that language came from, someone sent us some information from other municipalities outside of even Wisconsin of how they handled this, and it was that word was used, that we're ratifying the vote that was taken. And so I don't know how to do that other than take a vote.
well, usually on a reconsideration at the next meeting, that would be by a member of the prevailing side, but there was no
No.
prevailing side, so,
I don't think this is a reconsideration, though. This is ratifying a vote, allowing an alder in to vote that was not allowed due to inadvertent locking of doors, of what I understand. Ann, am I wrong on any of that? No. Oh, good. Oh, man, I don't know where my,
I don't think so, Madam Chair, and I don't mean to interrupt the discussion, but I don't think it's a reconsideration either. It's not that new information's come to light that the committee needs to discuss, that the person that voted on the prevailing side is wanting to bring it back at the next regular meeting. I think they really are looking for a ratification. So revoting on the same motion, although last time you only had 4 members here, now you have the 5th member of your committee here, but it's a recommendation that goes to council, so. Does that answer your question?
so then we just take a new motion and second?
Yes.
Okay,
I'll make the motion again to approve the restructure of the animal control program.
okay, I'll do the second since I did. Any other discussion? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 3-2. I think that's it, right? I lost my thing, so that's it, right? We were done? Okay. Sorry, I lost my iPad went down, so I'll take a motion to adjourn. Motion by Killian, second by Tierney. All in favor say aye. Aye. We're adjourned, thank you.